Alright guys, welcome to Social Psychology 1. This is Chapter 4 in your textbook, pages 556 through 575. All of psychology classes, this is probably the most popular chapter since you can use it directly on your life and manipulate those people around you. So let's get started. Social psychology and conformity is the focus of the first part of our chapter. Social psychology is the scientific study of how a person's thoughts, feelings, and behavior are influenced by the real and imagined or implied presence of others. Social psychology is the interaction we have with other people, the way we feel, the way we interpret our actions and their actions. Now, social influence is one of the biggest aspects of social psychology. It's the process through which a real or implied presence of others can directly or indirectly influence the thoughts, feelings, and behavior of an individual. Now, being human means we're influenced by the social influence. The clothes we wear every day, we want to conform, we want people to approve, or we don't want people to approve, we don't want to conform. So the social influence, whether you're with it or against it, is directly in play all the time. One of the biggest aspects of social psychology is conformity. It's the changing one's own behavior to match that of other people. We don't like to be out of sync from what's going on around us. We actively seek people who compliment us and who agree with us and think through and remind ourselves of us. So conformity is the basic aspect of social psychology because that's what we're all trying to find. We're trying to figure out and limit the social influence in order to find our ability to conform to everyone's behavior and expectations. Now, Ash's classic study on conformity is presented just like this. He presented 3 lines, A, B, and C, and asked the people to tell me what line is most similar to Exhibit A, Exhibit 1. What he would do is he would have one person not be in on it and have everyone else say that C was the correct answer. Well, looking at it comparatively, you'll know C is wrong, seeing how much one is influenced by our peers even when we think they're wrong. Ash's experiences proved that our social conformity is incredibly high. I'm going to show you a clip in class that'll help demonstrate this a little bit more, and it's an interesting topic. If all of your peers were in on one thing, would you really have the strength to go against it? How would you accept it? When we talk about going with the large majority of people without really allowing ourselves to speak up, we're using a process called groupthink. It's a kind of thinking that occurs when people place more importance on maintaining group cohesiveness than on assessing the facts of the problem in which the group is concerned. So, looking at Ash's study, if everyone in the room is saying C and you think it's A, most people are typically going to answer C. Well, if everyone else thinks it's C, then it has to be C. That's groupthink. Now, how groupthink is used is very commonly used in consumer psychology or advertising. It's a branch of psychology that studies the habits of consumers in the marketplace, including compliance. What that means is that advertisers and business owners are trying to make everybody group think that their ideas and their products are what you should buy. Okay, so they're manipulating your own brain, your own social desires against you to have you buy some products. Now, compliance is when you follow along. Okay, if you fall into Ash's study and you go with C, but the answer is truly A, even though you know it's A and you go with C, that's called compliance. It's changing one's behavior as a result of other people directing or asking for the change. Most people will comply with the norm and with the group. Even though they may have personal feelings against it, they'll still comply. Compliance. Now, a very famous example of groupthink is after the consequences of Pearl Harbor. What happened is that no one believed that Pearl Harbor could have actually been bombed. The Navy, made very famous comments. The Pacific Fleet concentrated at Pearl Harbor was a major deterrent against air and naval attack. No one believed that Pearl Harbor could be bombed. It's too far, it's too shallow, the ships are too closely packed, there's no way you can bomb it. So, on December 7th, 1941, no one believed it could happen. Once it did happen, immediately after, a ton of officers and high-ranking Navy officials said, oh, well, I really thought it could have occurred there, but I didn't want to go against everybody else and say that it could have when everyone was saying it couldn't. So we see groupthink even in major high intelligence fields like military planning and organization. So groupthink, when you don't want to go against the common ideas of the group in order to demonstrate your own opinion. Now, there are many different characteristics of groupthink. Illusion of it creates an excessive optimism that encourages taking extreme risks. All right, what that means is if everyone's doing it, it can't be wrong. Like, for instance, flash robbing. When people break into a store with like 30 other people and start grabbing stuff, there's 30 of you, not all 30 of you can be caught. That's invulnerability. Collective rationalization. Members discount warnings and do not reconsider their assumptions. Okay, if everyone thinks it's a good idea, it has to be a good idea. Belief in inherent morality. Members believe in the righteousness of their cause, therefore ignore the ethical and moral consequences of their decisions. I think that could be summed up very nicely with Adolf Hitler. Okay, he honestly thought he was doing a moral cleansing of the world by killing off all the Jews. We see this in Rwanda. Okay, we see this all the time with massive cult followings. Stereotype views of the outgroup. Negative views of the enemy make effective responses to conflict seem unnecessary. By addressing and focusing on the negative aspect, okay, it allows it, oh, well, they're really that bad of people, we should do something about it. Direct pressure on dissenters. Members are under pressure not to express. This is what we typically see in cults. You will get killed if you go against the majority. You will lose your children if you go against the majority. Self-censorship, doubts and deviations from the perceived group consciousness are not expressed. This is very common. Most people won't stand up for their own thoughts. It's kind of a sad fact, but most people would rather keep their mouth closed than actually say what they truly think. Illusions of unanimity. Majority views and judgments are assumed to be unanimous. Okay, we see this as something of, oh, well, everybody in the United States voted for this, or everybody thinks this. Okay, we see things in extremes. We really don't see things in smaller units, as sometimes probably is necessary. 4 ways to gain compliance. So all of a sudden you have this idea and you want people to believe in it. The first thing you can do is foot in the door technique, asking for a small commitment, and after gaining compliance, ask for a bigger. Have your sister, you want your sister to clean your room. Well, first start with her, hey, can you help me out? Can you pick up that pair of shoes for me and put them in my closet? Oh my God, thank you so much. Next day, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you pick up those 3 shirts? Oh my God, thank you so much. Next day, continue adding, foot in the door. Once it starts, it's easy to continue. Door in the face technique, asking for a large commitment and being refused, then asking for a smaller commitment. Okay? My fiance does this to me all the time. Can you make dinner? No, I'm not making dinner all by myself. Okay, can you do this and I'll do that? Can you just do that then? Fine. It sounds like you're making a compromise, like you're getting out of something, but in fact, you're just being tricked into something else. Now, in the door and face technique, we have the norm of reciprocity, which is the assumption that if someone does something for a person, that person should do something in return for them. So when my fiance asked me to cut the chicken and trim it, I'm expecting him to do something as well, like maybe dice up the tomatoes and the onions. He doesn't like chicken, that's fine. He can do all the dicing then. Okay, so door in the face technique is ask for something big, settle for something small. Foot in door is the opposite. You start small, go big. Another way to gain compliance is the low ball technique, getting a commitment from a person, then raising the cost of that commitment. Hey, you want to be a part of our soccer team? Awesome. It's only going to be $5 to join. Oh, $5? I can afford that. And then 2 weeks later, hey, you know how you're having a great time on our soccer team? It's actually going to cost $25. So sorry. Are you in? Well, they're already hooked. They already want it. Of course, they're going to pay the $25. Also, that's not all technique. A sales technique in which the persuader makes an offer, then adds something extra to make the offer look better before a target person can make a decision. For instance, that's exactly what happened today. I went to the store and was thinking about buying something. The person said, "Oh, well, I have an extra $200 off. Would you like it?" Okay. That last minute pitching of, hey, something a little bit easier, something to make the decision a little bit easier. Okay? All right, obedience. So we have compliance, and now we have obedience. Obedience is changing one's behavior at the command of an authority figure. Compliance is when you completely change it because of the large opinion of everyone else. Obedience is the change of the command of an authority figure. Now, the Milgram study, which we showed in class on Friday, the teacher administered what they thought were real shocks to a learner. Now, we were trying to see if an authority figure of a man in a white coat telling the teacher to continue administering the experiment was enough authority. And as you know, the Milgram study actually worked out. Now, the Milgram study shows that people are obedient to authority figures even if it conflicts with ourselves morally. 50% of the time people will administer a lethal dose of electric shock if being told to continue by an authority figure. Okay? Alright. Now, social loafing and social facilitation. Social facilitation is the tendency for the presence of other people to have a positive impact on the performance of an easy task. What that means is that people act better and are more likely to do better when other people are watching. Like, for instance, if you are out on the lacrosse field and there are other people around, you're more likely to have sharper, crisper passes, sharper, crisper shots on net, and are more likely to put a lot of hustle and really push yourself. However, the opposite side of that is social loafing. Sometimes there is the tendency for people to put less effort into a simple task when working with others on that task. Social loafing is like when you're in a group. When you're for a group project, 3 of you work really hard, 1 of you kind of just sits back and lets everyone else do the work for them. Social loafing. So we have 2 conflicting theories. The tendency of having other people make a positive impact on performance, social facilitation, and the negative is social loafing, where people take off time. Now, attitude is one of the biggest things that affects who we are. Everyone's attitude is a little bit differently, and our attitudes vary depending on what we're talking about. Some of you are very interested in music. You are in band, you write your own music, you sing, you do all these wonderful things. You are incredibly passionate about music. However, you are not so passionate about, let's say, math. Well, your attitude toward different things change. So what is attitude? Because it pushes us in many different ways. An attitude is a tendency to respond positively or negatively towards a certain person, object, idea, or situation. Now, when we talk about attitude, it overlooks everything we do. When we think of our family, we have a certain attitude towards our family. When we think about our friends, we have a certain attitude towards a specific group of friends or even an individual one. There are 3 components of attitude: affective, which is emotional component, the behavioral, and the cognitive component. Attitudes are often poor predictors of our behavior unless the attitude is very specific or very strong. Now, just because you have a negative attitude about math doesn't mean you have a poor performance in math. Okay? It's not always correlation. However, there is a slight connection between them. Now, the three components of attitude: feelings, thoughts, and actions. Okay? Attitudes consist of the way a person feels and thinks about something, as well as the person chooses to behave. If you like country music, you are also likely to think that country music is good music. You're also more likely to listen to the style of music, buy this type of music, and even go to performances. Each of the three components influences the other two. So if you have an attitude towards country music, your feelings: I like country music, it's fun and uplifting. Your thoughts are: I think country music is better than any other kind of music I hear on the radio. And the actions are: I buy country music CDs every chance I get. Okay? So the three components are behavioral, feelings, and thoughts. Now, the formation of our attitudes come from many different ways. Direct contact with a person, situation, object, or idea. Direct instruction from parents or others. Interacting with other people who have a certain attitude. Watching the actions and reactions of others to ideas, people, and situations. So, an example of a direct contact with a person, situation, or event is you were making fun of your best friend's boyfriend and she got really mad and you didn't speak for 2 weeks, knowing the lesson that you probably shouldn't talk poorly about your best friend's boyfriend. That's direct contact with that person and a direct lesson. All right, direct instruction from your parents. An example of that would be, doing drugs is bad, smoking marijuana is bad, drinking alcohol is bad, and going forward on that and not smoking pot, not drinking, and doing all that solely based on what your parents told you, that's direct instruction. Interacting with people who hold a certain attitude. If you hang out with all people who believe that Buck Wild is the best show on MTV now, okay, then your attitude is more likely to be Buck Wild is the best TV show on MTV. Watching the actions and interactions. This is kind of like social learning theory, is that when we watch people react, we make certain assumptions and create attitudes towards that. We're also heavily influenced by persuasion. Now, persuasion is the process by which one person tries to change the belief, opinion, position, or course of action by another person through argument, pleading, or explanation. Okay, you guys all have had to write persuasive essays in your English classes talking about how to get someone to think like you. You've all tried arguing with a friend about why your opinion's right and why you are right. Okay, so persuasion influences our changing in belief. We just survived this last presidential election with all of these debates and all of these political ads, and all of those are based on persuasion, trying to get you to think that whatever candidate paid for that ad is the best candidate, and why the other candidate isn't so good. That's persuasion. Now, there's many different ways that persuasion is used. Elaboration likelihood model. What that means is it's a model of persuasion stating that people will either elaborate on the persuasive message or fail to elaborate on it. And the future actions of those who do elaborate on it are more predictable than those who don't. Okay? So, what that means is that you either are going to share a persuasive message or you're not going to. There's many different ways in which we do that. Central root processing. It's a type of information processing that involves attending to the content of the message itself. So, thinking back to those political ads, when they're talking about Mitt Romney's decisions on healthcare, how he was anti-healthcare, that is going through why he voted, why he did, how he did it, what's the him defending his ideas on healthcare. Now, the peripheral root processing is type of information processing that involves attending to factors not involved in the message, such as the appearance of the source of the message, the length of the message, and non-content factors. What that means is when we used to have those third-party advertisements where it would just state Obama hates freedom, Obama hates choice, Obama, hates the Constitution, and at the very end it would be this brought to you by the people of Obama Hates America, or Romney is going to crush all the liberty of the people. All of those ads is the peripheral route. They're not directly attacking something. They're going around the information and coming up with non-content factors. One of the most difficult aspects of Social Psychology 1 is going to be cognitive dissonance. Now, what it is a sense of discomfort or distress that occurs when a person's behavior does not correspond to the person's impression formation, the forming of the first knowledge that a person has concerning another person. What that means is it's the changing of our attitudes when we work with certain people. Okay? So, lesson by changing the conflicting behavior, changing the conflicting attitude, or forming a new attitude to justify the behavior. What that means is that a person's behavior does not always indicate what the person thinks, and sometimes what a person thinks is not always dictated by their behavior. Now, when we're dealing with cognitive dissonance, we're dealing with different types. There's social cognition. It's the mental process that people use to make sense of the social world around them. We are learning every day about the world around us, okay? And it's our ability to take that information and use it effectively. One of the most important tools we use is impression formation, forming the first knowledge of a person has about another. Now, if you remember your first day when you were in Miss Reeves' class, you came up with a formation of your own impression. Wow, she is really mean, giving us a quiz and homework on the first day. We already have to read our textbook. There's a vocab quiz the next day. We have this huge packet. Okay, that's all impression formation. The primacy effect is the very first impression that one person has about a person tends to persist even in the face of evidence to the contrary. So even your first day you came in and you're overwhelmed by Miss Reeves, that even though things have changed and you have learned to love AP Psych, when you probably still think of Miss Reeves, even at this point, you probably think she's still a little bit crazy. That is the primacy effect. Even though you've learned that there is a method to the madness, you still feel like Miss Reeves is just a little bit crazy. Now, social is the assignment of a person has just met to the category based on characteristics of the new person has in common with other people whom they've once experienced. Like, for instance, I will always be in your previous teacher file. When you think Miss Reeves, I'm in the teacher file. When you think of Ryan Gosling, you're going to think of, The Notebook. We put things into categories to help us organize it. Now, one of the ways we do this is by stereotypes, okay? Anytime Miss Reeves makes a mistake or can miscount or, adds wrong, whatever, automatically you're like, oh, it's because she's a blonde, she's an idiot. That's a stereotype. And a stereotype is a set of characteristics that people believe is shared by all members of a particular social category. Okay, so because I'm a blonde hair, you guys may think my ridiculous behavior and ridiculous mistakes may be contributed to that. Now, one of the big ways we do social cognition and social categorization is implicit personality theory. Now, this sets of assumptions about how different types of people, personality traits, and actions are related to each other. What this states is that we are based upon our personality, the way we are shaped and the way we result and interact. Okay? That it's because, for instance, if you've ever heard of your signs, Aquarius, Capricorn, all of those are based on personality studies. Okay, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth in class. Another way we use social cognition is with schemas. It's mental patterns that represent what a person believes about certain types of people. So, we have social schemas about different people and the way they react. Like, for instance, a very popular one, anyone who wears glasses is very smart. So anytime we see glasses, we automatically assume they are very smart because it allows us to categorize people quickly. Alright, so that's it for this week. I hope you have a great week. I'm looking forward to getting back to the normal routine. If you have any questions, please let me know in class. Enjoy doing your focus, and let's rock Thursday's test. See you next time. Bye.